Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hey everybody, this is Steve Anderson, animation director and storyboard artist, and you are listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Aye, mateys, remember this as the day you sailed with the Skull Rock Podcast. Proceed at your own risk, and mark well me words, mateys. Dead men tell no tale.
Every week I smile when I hear Dave do that intro. Welcome to Skull Rock Podcast, a show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, as well as what's streaming, what's playing in theaters, and what's happening in this multiverse of entertainment. I'm Aljon, musician and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and pop culturist. And you can email me, Aljon, A-L-J-O-N, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, Disney historian, and author. Welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel, which Aljon has updated. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com.
Aljon in for Dave this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. We've got a little bit of a truncated program today. Dave is on the road, and we both hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day celebration. So shout out to all the mothers out there. Sit back, relax, and enjoy our final week of our interview with animator extraordinaire Roger Chiasson, Part 4, as he talks about all of his projects as well as working in the animation industry, collaboration. Enjoy. Roger Chiasson, Part 4 on Skull Rock Podcast.
Skull Rock Podcast, interview time.
Well, Aljon, we're back again for week 4 with Roger Chiasson. Chiasson. I'm trying to say it with a little French flair, Roger.
Chiasson.
Roger, it's great to have you back. You know, last week we kind of left off. You were talking a little bit about Osmosis Jones, but I wanted to pick up this week and talk a little bit about Clone High and what you see as some of the differences between working on these TV series as opposed to working on a feature. Aside from, you know, the budgets and all of that kind of stuff. But if you could talk a little bit about what Clone High is.
I was going to say last week. Yeah, it's funny you should say Clone High because I did not work in Clone High way back when it was popular, 10, 15 years ago. I forgot what it was. So there's a series that was done, but they're doing a new series. They've been doing. After I left Brunel's, I worked for a company called Jamfilled, and basically I was there to again pose characters on shows that.
And did the animation go overseas?
No, it was done all in Canada.
Oh, it was done in Canada.
It was done by Rig. They would use my drawings to.
Okay, so you were doing 2D drawings, and then they were using the CG models to match up to your poses.
Yeah. Okay. And we actually did a thing called Reindeer in Here, where we posed out for a CG Christmas special.
Yeah,
and then we went into. Another show.
How do you feel about doing like 2D poses for CG? I mean, do you sit there and go, why don't they just do it 2D?
Sometimes, actually, because what happens is like I did a lot of things where I'd animate a character, you had to dance, and then I see what they did with it, and they didn't follow my roughs because there was no time. It's again a time issue. So it was very frustrating. So I would say to them, look, don't give me anything you're not going to use because I'm wasting my time.
Right.
They're going to put it in.
And they're wasting their money.
And they're wasting time too. Yeah. So they said, okay, we're going to be better. So now they were really watching and trying them to do as much as possible, something that did not look copy and paste. Because I found out towards the end of what's the name of this? Green Eggs and Ham, that there were people on the rig side of our studio who wanted a chance to do traditional. So they would come to me, can I do a scene? So I would give them a scene to do and help them to develop it. And if we used it, we would pay them for it and everything. And there was this one particular animator. just a young student and such a talent. And he really wanted to do. So finally, I gave him some scenes to do. And when I saw it, it was done with a rig, but it had everything the traditional that you want. I'm going, how the hell did he do this with a rig? There's no freaking way. So I'm asking him, how do you do this? It's impossible because you can't just. And he finally says, well, what you have to do is draw. You have to draw. You have to take it off the rig, draw those poses, clean them up, paint them, put it back in. And once you have that in there, you can manipulate from there.
Yeah.
So he was able to, and he was so fast and so good that it was like having a rig character who could do traditional.
Yeah.
And when I sent the roughs to Warner Brothers to LA to look for it, I said, this is the animator's rough. And they went, this has already been cleaned up. I go, no, actually, this is roughs. You're kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, it's using a rig. They went, no way. So they were freaking out. How do you do this? How do you do this? No, I didn't want to tell them. But I said, he's just really talented. And he was a student. He was in his second year at Sheridan. I think by the time he left, he had graduated. And I kept saying to the people who ran the studio, you gotta like talk to this kid and treat him really well because he's an asset.
Yeah.
Well, the best stuff they had was his stuff.
Yeah.
And above anybody who had like 20 years experience in a rigged situation. But I guess they were adamant about paying him as a student. And so they lost him. Now he's in LA working for Disney at their studio there.
Yeah.
And they're going to love him. He's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's like, it was a real lesson for me to see that. I couldn't understand how he could do that.
Yeah.
Because it's already painted, but how do you make the rig see the top of his head when he looks like that? Like, you can't. Because they usually just take a drawing that says the same amount of hair. You show more hair. You don't have that unless you figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe they will one day. I don't think so, but maybe unless you draw it.
So let me ask you this, Roger. You know what are you working on now? And you've worked all over the world. Are you done traveling? Are you just wanting to work out of Toronto? I'm
going to stay in Toronto, yeah. And then near the end there, I may retire. We'll see. I'm not working on a test for possible series. We'll see if it sells and see where it goes. We'll see how that goes. But, we're finding that they're not really giving like a whole lot of money for series work because of the situation in LA and here and anywhere else. Because they know people are like desperate for work. So they're taking advantage. Whoever's like, it's just one of those things. When there's a lot of work, it's different. But when there's like not too many, people take advantage.
Well, it's supply and demand. That's all it is. All it boils down.
So then you got the guys that are in features, but most of the features are CG and stuff. I've been thinking if I knew about CG, I would maybe like to try it, see how I do.
Yeah.
Because I know people who have done it and then they traditionally they went to CG and they like it. It's gotten a lot better. When I first, we had the studio in the house and we hired people to train us to do CG. And the first group of people we had were more technicians.
Yeah.
And they brought out these skeletons, statues, whatever, to animate. We're going to teach you how to do a walk cycle. This is what you do. You lift, where to put the foot and all that stuff. And we're all looking at each other going, so wait a minute, what kind of walk do you want? Is this female? Is this a male? Is this an old man or a young man? They go, what does that matter? Well, it matters because old people walk differently than young people or females. Yeah. You need to know that to animate it properly.
Richard Williams, Dick Williams used to talk about how he used to sit in Soho Square in London and just watch all the different walks.
Yeah. He was telling me about that when he said, I bet that guy's gay. You just saw him. He didn't have an up and down. It was just smooth. And then, of course, when he came around the corner, you saw all of him, and he was like sashaying, but beautifully, though. He spotted him. But yeah, he says that's like you have to be observant in animation. You really do. I always look at people, and I'm always tapping my fingers when people walk. That's a 16 frame walk. That's a 24 frame walk.
Yeah.
Just for my own.
Yeah. Sure.
For years, and we didn't have pencil tests, so we didn't know if anything worked
until you saw it, right?
So you rely on the numbers, you rely on the charts. You know how many drawings there are in between your keys. Yeah. So there's 12 frames here, a 12 frame beat or a 12 frame. Then you go, this sounds like that. Oh, that'll work.
Yeah.
And then that's how you check your own stuff.
Yeah, it's animation. It's all about the timing.
It's all about timing. It's so much more so about timing. And I love that whole side of it, like or accents versus a gesture. Like if you're going to like points way before he says it. Yeah. There it is. Or is it like there it is? There's just so many ways to do the same scene. And that's what makes it so much fun.
You mentioned earlier, maybe you'll retire. Do you really see yourself retiring, or do you see yourself?
I don't. If I retire, I'll do my own stuff.
Yeah, you'll just do it your own short. The way a lot of John Musker's done a short.
Yeah, like I'm actually working on an idea. But first it was a series, but I think it might have to be a movie, maybe a live action movie, because it's pretty complicated, and I don't see how it could be done other than that. But if it was done as a movie, it would look pretty cool. I think in my mind, I got it figured out. But who knows?
But would you do like a 4 or 5 short?
I mean, so I didn't cut off.
We're having a little trouble with our internet here.
Yeah,
it seems to be chattering. I think we're back.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, do you see yourself doing like a 4 or 5 minute short on your own, similar to like Musker did I'm Hip, and Andreas Deja did Mushka. That was a longer short. But I mean, do you see yourself doing? Aaron Blaze has Snow Bear out there right now that is going out to all the festivals, and it's a terrific short. But again, that's like a 4 or 5 minute short.
Yeah, I don't know if I could, because it's just me right now.
Yeah,
you'd have to get people who, if I was be able to get funded to do, maybe I would be able to hire people to help me out.
Yeah,
it's a difficult situation.
But you speak French. You speak French. Go to the French side of the Canadian Film Board.
I did that will. Yeah, I'm actually not from Quebec, so it's New Brunswick. So is that considered French? It is a different kind of French, Canadian French.
So you're in New Brunswick right now, or are you?
No, I'm in Toronto.
You're in Toronto.
Okay. In 1967.
Do you know where Per Se Rock is?
Oh yeah.
I've been to Per Se Rock.
It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's not far from where I live. A place called Campbellton.
Yeah, and Per Se Rock, just for our listeners, when the tide is out, you can actually walk across to the rock, which is actually it's huge. It's huge.
Brunswick is like the California of Canada. It's the only thing, it's a lot colder, but in the summer it's wonderful because warm currents come up and
you got the Gulf Stream coming up. Yeah, but when the tide is out, you can walk across to Per Se Rock. You just don't want to get stuck over there when the tide comes back.
That's funny. I haven't thought about that in a while.
Yeah,
I love my time in New Brunswick because we were into. The whole family was into seafood. You used to be able to get lobster for 25 cents a piece.
Yeah.
And man, it was really good.
Was there any kind of animation community in New Brunswick?
There's a school actually in the name of the town, but it's quite popular. Quite a few people, are there.
Yeah.
Trying to learn animation.
Is there any kind of business in New Brunswick?
Commercials or anything? That many things.
Yeah.
There's like little things happening in Montreal. People are working on trying to do their own films as well. And stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not as busy as it was.
Sure.
I don't know
do you think it'll come back? I mean,
sometimes
those things go in cycles a bit. Yeah.
And then also there's the thing where now if you want to, because I've thought about teaching. I did teach at Sheridan for one summer, just before going to LA. And then, they changed the school curriculum and they made it, you now get a degree.
Yes.
And if you don't have none of us who graduated from Sheridan College, we didn't get degrees. We got diplomas, like high honors and all that stuff, but still diplomas. But the degree allows you to work. If you want to work in another country, it makes it a lot easier to get a work permit if you have a degree.
I see.
So in essence, they want the teachers to have a degree.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who couldn't get work in animation went back to school and got their degree, and now they're teaching at Sheridan.
Right.
So they only really teach us to do privately, or there's some colleges that don't have a degree situation. You don't need a degree, but they're rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
is what it is.
Yeah. What do you see as the future of animation?
I don't think it's ever going to die. It seems like it's just it's a great industry and very creative and stuff. I find that certain countries in Europe are really thriving on this. Like they're doing productions amongst different countries because they're so close together.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's helping them. And then, but in the States, it's a bit different because it's the States and it's got Canada. And it's people from South America maybe available that come up, or I don't know where it's going to go. There's but I'm hopeful. I think eventually that will change. And like I say, sometimes you get a lot of what they call ageism in a way, where they think you're too old, you've forgotten everything.
Yeah, talk about that for a second, because Aljon and I have had a number of guests on over the years, and that sort of comes up where people get to a certain age and they start talking about how their phone is not ringing anymore, that people aren't calling, and why do you think that is?
Well, I guess it's normal because usually in series or feature, you get young talent that comes in with interesting designs they haven't seen. And you get somebody that's been designing even at Disney or even they get Nickelodeon, and they've got an experience, but they haven't done anything new lately because that's just the way they draw.
Yeah.
And so, or they haven't been asked to or given a chance to because they think, oh, you're never going to come up with something, but you never know until somebody does something that looks amazing and it's old school and go, yeah, let's do that. And all of a sudden it all changes. It can happen that quick.
Oh, no, something we've talked about this, you could have somebody come along and do an independent 2D feature film. If it went out and made $1 billion at the box office, there'd be an executive running down the hall of a major studio saying, I have a great idea. We should do a hand-drawn movie. I mean, that's, the kind of thing that would go on, right? Do you think that any of the major studios will ever go back and create a 2D animated film, or you think that ship has sailed?
I think that's still going to come. I think it's as because of the strike and everything that hit people really hard. It's going to take a while.
Yeah,
and they expect it to come back, but I just don't know exactly when. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I really believe that there's always going to be people out there who want to do something different.
Yeah.
And now traditional animation is not completely gone for sure. If you can prove that you can do it at a certain amount of money that's bearable, then yeah, maybe it's possible, but I don't know.
What advice, let me ask you this, what advice would you give to somebody who's getting into the business today? Well,
I think all kinds, try and get as many different types of animation under your belt, whether it's CG, rigged, all the different kinds. Learn. The best thing is to just cover your bases. If you can learn to work in rigged animation and you're good at it, you're not going to be out of work. But it's just not as interesting to me right now. Maybe if that gets solved. I think CG is growing really fast now. And then with Blender being free, and it's like, wow, I mean, a lot of studios are starting to use Blender because it's free. And you can do some amazing stuff with it. Certainly you can do great boards with it. You can create your backgrounds and have the character animate through the background.
Yeah.
And while you're moving the camera, which makes for great boards.
I mean, you haven't really talked about it, but talk about AI in the business, Apparently, Jeffrey Katzenberg said that 90% of the animation jobs will be replaced with AI. Do you believe that?
No.
Yeah, I don't
either. AI should be like a tool. Like, I believe like an AI could be used for writing. Like, you can get, it's called chat TVP or something.
Chat GPT.
Which actually you can type out something and an idea and you give it to the guy to write me a script based on this kind of a thing. And they will write you something, but then you have to baby it. You have to go back in it and tell it where it's wrong and what's wrong. And you work with it.
Yeah.
Until it looks like a regular script, because a lot of times it doesn't.
I do think that, for sort of a visual development artist, I think it's a useful tool because they can do a painting and, put that into Mid-Journey or something and say, give me 12 different versions of this in these different styles. And it's a time saver.
It's a tool. It's a great tool. I don't think it'll ever replace it. I would be very surprised if you give it like, hey, write me a script about, a cowboy in the Western, blah, blah, blah. Clint Eastwood, blah, blah, perfect script. No, it's not going to happen.
No, because it's
There's a
going to
lot
go
of work.
out. It's basically scraping what's already been done, so it's regurgitating something.
Yeah.
You know,
It's basically what information you feed into it.
right?
And then until it understands, I guess, and it does the best it can.
It goes back to when we were talking about the overseas studios, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
So if you put in really good boards and really good information, you're going to get something good out of it. But if you're just using it as a crutch to, so cheat, if you will, it's not going to really work.
Yeah. So that's my take on AI. I think it's. But we got off track as far as Clone High. I remember Clone High because I was working with these guys, and they were working on Clone High series, a brand new one. And one of them show that they had was they wanted to do it in 5 different styles of animation.
Yeah.
And one of them was a Ralph Bakshi, and one of them was some other kind of style in the one show, like a 20-minute show. So they needed some animation, like 3 or 4 minutes of animation done in Ralph Bakshi style, but a mixture of Clone High, which is very limited and stuff, but a bit like Ralph Bakshi. So I never saw the final together, but it was basically animation. So I was able to actually animate, get it cleaned up and painted and stuff. And it was kind of neat to do, like almost like Fritz the Cat kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had to have like a girl in bed with she's in love with the tape recorder. What's that called? The Sony ones, Betamax. And like she's in bed and she's there making love and stuff like this. And it's like, wow, I can do this because it's Bakshi. But it was fun. I had fun, on that. So, and everybody that worked on it had a good time on it because they were people who were used to doing rigged, but they were actually had a chance to animate traditionally. So they were really happy to be able to do that. And some of them did some pretty nice work. You could tell that they kind of probably wished that they were able to do some traditional animation too, as well as rigged. Because it's just a time thing. Rig it's unbelievable how much they produce on a TV show. Like sometimes they shoot a whole show in a week. It's unbelievable. Painted.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You can't compete with that in traditional.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
The show looks like a lot of fun, Roger.
Fun animating. I just have fun, especially I love doing dialogue and stuff like that. The things you can do with dialogue, mouths. Yeah, you really.
Roger, you said you never saw some of the stuff. Do you go out of your way to actually see the finished product, or do you not care? You just had fun doing the.
No, I had fun and I saw some of it, but it wasn't quite finished. And then I moved on. They were on the shows, and so I never bothered to check on them like months and months later.
Yeah.
It was just one of those often. That's about all I had to do with Clone High. I'd seen Clone High episodes over the years, but it was done at Nelvana for years, I think. And when this came, you're doing Clone High here again. Yep.
So they're basically doing an updated version of it.
Yeah. I don't know if they're still doing a series of that. I think it's over.
But you worked on several episodes.
Just one episode.
Yeah.
IMDb says. Do I get paid extra for this? Because I have so many things that they list me on that I didn't work on it.
I know. You need to go track down your paychecks for all of those.
I ask you about that, Roger, because the Queen video did show up in there. What was it like kind of doing animation for these high-profile bands and acts, during that time period, like Queen?
Yeah. Well, that was a couple years before Roger Rabbit, and I was in London. I had a small studio with a guy named Mike Smith, and we were doing commercials and pop videos. And usually that entailed a group would come up with a song, and we have this video, we're going to do a video. It was so popular, pop videos. And basically we'd have usually maybe a weekend or maybe a week if we're lucky. And whatever animation we produced during that week, we would give to the director of the video, the pop video, and he would film the group dancing and whatever, and he would intercut with animation whenever things were a little slow. So we would provide them with stuff. So basically it was stuff all we could do, the most we could do in the amount of time. So that was fun because it allowed people to see these pop videos, and a lot of agencies would see the pop videos and go, we want a commercial with that. And they find out who we were, and we get a commercial that way. So that paid off. But we were working on this show called Highlander, a live action movie with Christopher Lambert, where he dies if you cut his head off and stuff like that. Anyway, so Queen was doing the music for it. And we did the last bit from the bad guy gets his head cut off, and all these ghosts come out of the woodwork and electric effects. So we did all the effects and these monsters flying around attacking this Christopher Lambert at the end. And that was a really tough job because we worked on big fields and on frosted cell, and we had to do everything in China marker, and it was filmed in reverse, and everything black came out white. So it put it on the thing. And then Queen was doing the music for it. So when we were finished that, and they came and said that we're doing a video, would you like to work on it? And we said, yeah. So we started the new video, and then we did that. And then it was around Christmas time, and I was leaving, and everybody else had gone. I was the only one guy. Some guy walks in and says, where's all the animators? He says, well, I'm it right now. Well, we have a record cover to design. We want you to do a record cover for Queen. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Well, we want you to do like the band, caricature the band, dressed like some of the characters in the video. And you have like a week to do it. So I got a hold of this girl who's painter and designed the lettering and everything. And then I did it as quickly as I could. I used some of the stuff we had on the video. And at the end, I tried to give as much credit to the people who did those things, but they only allowed me certain people. But at least I got a credit on it. There's quite a few people did get credited on it. And then 6 months later, when I was in the Philippines, I'm in the middle of the jungle in a little store, and I see a T-shirt with my design on it. And I was like, what? I didn't even know they had a concert. They did a concert. They had an airplane with all the lettering on the side that I designed because it had to look like the Queen. Yeah. So it was an amazing, like, what the hell happened? That's the fun of working in London at that time. It was so creative.
Yeah.
And people there, all the studios worked together. Like we would go at the end of the week, people would go to a certain pub and go, Oscar Grillo needs a couple of animation on this. He's doing a commercial, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Why don't you give him a call?
There was that one pub in central London where all the animators went to. I don't know if they still do.
I don't know, but that was a great place to go to network.
Wasn't it was near the Liberty department store?
Yeah, not too far from there.
Yeah. It was.
And there's a couple of them. There was two of them actually, but the one major one that everybody kind of
I've been to that one a couple of times.
It's pretty famous, yeah.
Yeah.
But we used to go like just to network, really.
But it was really you walked in there and it was everybody from the London animation community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like any studio, you run out of paper, you could call up another studio and go, hey, do you have any extra paper? We ran out. Yeah, come on over.
Yeah.
They would share.
Yeah. Everybody helped one another.
A real community.
Yeah.
And everybody knew each other, and it was fun, and it was great. It was like a great time to be there. It was like the heyday of my time in animation because it was so darn creative and fun.
That's awesome. Well, I got to say, Roger, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you over the last 4 weeks. And it's just really insightful about what's going on up in Toronto and your career. And it's just amazing that you've just been able to work all over the world. That to me is what's so wonderful about animation. It transcends culture and language.
Yeah, I wanted to make a card saying "Have disc will travel." But never did.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I actually had a plastic disc with pegs on it that was cut. It was a round disc, but it was cut off at the top. It was flat at the top, so it would fit in my suitcase. And I, on several occasions, was in a hotel room with a lamp down on the floor and the disc on my knees, doing animation.
I had a portable little suitcase made of wood. So I put a light in there, and then you opened it up, and there was like I put a perspex, they call it,
like a little easel up.
Yeah,
right.
And I had a peg I would tape in there, so if I'm on a plane, I could just sit there.
It's something else,
But yeah.
Anyway, hey, listen, it was a pleasure having you on the Skull Rock podcast. I look forward to talking with you again in the future. But thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks. I think you guys are doing a great job. It's good to see all these people, and remember all the stuff that went through in this business.
No, I mean, it's an oral history of the last 30, 40 years.
Oh, I know.
So that's great. Anyway, it was great having you on the show. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. And goodbye, Al.
Hi, it's producer Alice Dewey Goldstone, and this is the Skull Rock Podcast.
Your attention, please. Now loading on track number 1 for a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom.
Skull Rock Podcast.
All aboard.
Your Main Street to the world of Disney.
And that wraps up part 4 of our awesome sit-down episodes with Roger Chiasson. What a great guy. I can't tell you, he is the nicest guy. Master animator. Check out his work. Our links to his page as well as IMDb, they're in the show notes, so please check out Roger Chiasson. Amazing guy. What a nice guy indeed. Now we look forward to having you back next week with more awesomeness as Dave and I delve into the history of animation with some awesome guests. We've got, oh man, so many awesome guests coming up. In fact, a mega series coming your way. Dave usually doesn't tease this stuff, but I'm going to tell you, this stuff is amazing. I cannot wait to unleash these great interviews with these awesome animators and filmmakers. It's going to be great. Anyway, gang, if you love what you're listening to, we want you to subscribe and like our show wherever you find podcasts. Everywhere out there. You can even find us on YouTube. We'd appreciate it. Every little bit helps the algorithm, helps our show grow. You can also follow us on Facebook, X, LinkedIn. Dave and I are both on there. Also Instagram. Be sure to check out our site, skullrockpodcast.com, for all of the great archive of shows we've had now for, 4 or 5 years now? It's crazy. We have so many shows. We'd also love for you to send us those emails, Dave or Aljon, ALJON, at skullrockpodcast.com. Brief word about my other podcast. Check out me, myself, and I, as well as Kristen, my better half, and Kat Arcori. We do Dining at Disney podcast every single week. We release new episodes. Please check out our weekly show. We talk about Disney food and dining. You can also follow me on Instagram. I would appreciate that. Big shout out to our friends at Sorcerer Radio at srsounds.com. All Disney music all day long. Check out the free app and listen to all that wonderful Disney park music everywhere you go on your smart device. Now, Dave has also got a little shout out because he is on Sirius XM radio. We love that. It's great that Sirius XM has Dave on there with Tunes Behind the Tunes, and his show, his documentary Come to Life, talking about the tunes behind the tunes, talking about all kinds of great Disney music on Sirius XM. Check your listings for that. Also, oldmillpress.com. Dave's got great stuff there at oldmillpress.com. The latest book he's got, it's called Find Your Happy Place. I thoroughly recommend it. It's the 8-step guide for boosting your creativity through a personal retreat. You need to pick up that book. It's great. What a great read. Also, it's a winner of a gold medal at the Fire Book Awards, so congratulations, Dave, for that honor. You can also check out all of the great stuff. He's got free content. He can sign book plates for you and all kinds of stuff. If you have a bunch of Dave Bossert books, check out davebossert.com. The link is in the show notes. It's amazing. Check out his website for all the great stuff. Once again, skullrockpodcast.com for the archive. We'll see you next week right here on an all-new episode of Skull Rock Podcast. Take care.